Welcome to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have the legend himself, Alfonso Cuadra, founder of Wealth Genius, fellow Canadian professional speaker. Welcome to the podcast, Alfonso.
How's it going? Majid, like magic.
You got it. It's going great. It's a beautiful day here in Ottawa. You're on the other side of the river.
I
I'm
know.
over in Quebec. You have an amazing story. I remember the first time I met you, you told me from rags to riches, from war-torn Venezuela down to the downtown streets of Ottawa, building a clothing fashion line with multiple stores across Canada, making millions of dollars and then losing it all like a reckless young man, and then building a real estate business. And I remember when you had 13 doors,
Yeah.
which was about 12 more doors than I had at the time. And now I think you're up to 900 doors. So I'm excited to hear about your journey. And I remember when we were in the YMCA building with a whiteboard trying to figure out, you and me trying to figure out how do we get speaking engagements and how do we build a business with public speaking?
We were so naive, you know?
Yes. Okay, so
I love
did
it.
you go bankrupt, by the way?
Never. No, I didn't go. When I was 24, I had some financial issues, troubles. I went, obviously at 21, making millions of dollars and being completely responsible. No, I wasn't. But, I spent all the money, really. I thought that my business was going to be a stream that was going to keep on giving for the rest of my life, right? And when I turned, by the time I was 24, I was negative $1 million, and I had to dig myself out of a hole. So no, I didn't go bankrupt, but the second time around, I think I valued money more, and I was educated. I educated myself in financial literacy, and then I made better decisions, after I dug myself out of the hole, which is when I started down the path of real estate.
Gotcha. And you were also a father at a very young age.
17.
Yes. So you grew up fast.
That changed my life, right? So previous to that, I was war torn. I left home at 15, and I was homeless. I was living on the streets at 15 years old. I went through some really, really, really dark times, just like everyone, I think, has gone through a dark time. I had a life-changing event. I became a dad, right, at 17 years old. Gave me purpose, gave me a why. Now, I always tell people, you know what, you don't have to have kids to find a why or find a purpose, but, definitely for me, it was something impactful because, I grew up with no father. I felt like no one was there to support me growing up. And so there's no way I wanted to repeat that with my own child. And I needed to step up, and my full focus was to make that little girl proud of me.
Okay, so everyone needs a why.
Yeah,
And then,
you don't have to have kids.
yes.
Because, like, especially young people, if you're watching this, and I'm sure you have an audience of, younger people, older people. I mean, it doesn't have to be your kids. It could be something you need to hold on to that gives you a drive, keeps you moving forward. Because you know what, whatever road you go down, you're going to have obstacles. You're going to have roadblocks. And if you don't have a strong enough purpose, you'll give up, right? It's easy to give up, especially the speaking business. I always tell people, if you're going to go down people are like, Alfonso, I want to be a speaker. I'm like, the majority of speakers have skinny kids.
Yeah.
You're going to be I said, be prepared to be underpaid for a very, very long time. And, just like when we met each other, we were at the very beginning of our journey, which I want to say it was roughly 15 years ago. I want to say
Yep.
roughly about 15
That's
years
about
ago.
right.
Yeah. And I had no clue. I thought people, if I learned how to speak and I had a good enough story and message, I thought people would just hire me all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just give me big fat checks.
So I remember you and we were giving speeches to at-risk youth. for
Yes.
free on a
Yeah.
weekend, just because we wanted to do it.
Excuse me, Majid. I would get Starbucks gift cards. Okay, so
Right.
you know what I mean. I was one step above.
Technically a paid speaking engagement. That's right. And I remember early days, Alfonso, you would host events on wealth building,
Yeah.
whether it was entrepreneur mindset or money mindset, which things that you've really come a long way with. And you would rent a room at the Best Western
Mhm.
and you would sell tickets at $300. And I was watching and taking notes, thinking like, okay, how's he selling $300 tickets, and how much does the Best Western room cost? And
The basement of the Best Western.
that's right. So, I really admire that you just go for it and that you
Yeah.
just do it. And I also acknowledge that it's 2023. Maybe it's a bit of a different time and a different strategy. So many more opportunities online. But also, what I find really interesting about you is that you're still getting on airplanes and booking hotel rooms and filling rooms, and that's really, really impressive too. I love seeing the pictures of you with your groups. So maybe I'll ask you if you were giving advice to someone today who said, I want to do speaking, I want to do workshops, I want to fill my workshops. I don't know, should I book the Best Western or should I book a different place? And what should I price the tickets at? Where do you even start with advice for someone who wants to do what you're doing now?
Well, first things first. If you're doing it for the money, like if that's what you're trying to make money, it's probably not the best business, right? Because you got to love it. Like it's got to be a burning desire, and this is why we talk about a purpose or a mission. Something that it's going to drive you, because you're not going to make money. You're going to put out a lot of money doing events with like two or three people show up. You may do Zoom, maybe you go online, or you go on people's podcasts or whatever. You got to build your name, you got to brand yourself, and you got to start building a community, right? If you want to be a professional speaker or professional anything, um, people talk, what's the book? Where can I learn about speaking? I always tell people, you got to read about these two things. Even in real estate, people ask me, how do I become a real estate investor? I say, you got to read about these two subject matters: leadership and sales. Leadership, how to get a group of people to follow you on a consistent basis. So there's a base, right? You have a base of people that are going to follow you, that are going to fill part of your room. And then those people, because you've serviced them to a point where they're so happy and satisfied, they're going to pull other people into your room, right? Then you start building the community. Now, sales, if you don't know how to close, right? Once those people come, because people will come, people will come to a free event, people will come to a paid event sometimes, depending on the subject matter. They will come, but now you gotta learn how to sell, right? And you're in the front of the room. You have an opportunity. Anytime someone enters your room, that's an opportunity to create a member of your community, right? That's the way you have to. This is what you gotta, the way you have to look at it. And so, if someone was starting today, you got to educate yourself on leadership. You got to educate yourself on learning how to sell. Well, I don't want to sell. My product should be good enough for them to want to join on their own. Well, no, like no one cares, right? Everyone.
Alfonso, how does someone learn how to sell?
Well, it's a practice, right? It's an art form. It's a practice. You have to educate yourself. You have to practice. Role play with people around you. And when you create a sale, that's a conversion, right? So now that's measurable, right? You can measure what you convert for example, in the real estate business, right? So you pitch 10 times, you pitch your deal, one person invests. Well, that's a 10% conversion. Now let's improve on that and let's increase the conversion. You see, if you have metrics, then you know how, you have something to measure, right? You could say, okay, next time I'm going to add this, I'm going to say this. You can watch yourself, watch video of yourself, pitching a deal, trying to get an investor, and then all of a sudden out of 10 you get two, right? So
Yeah.
now you've increased your conversion. Now that's measurable, right? You can see whether
Yeah.
you're on the right track, on the wrong track.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about selling from the stage.
Yeah.
You shared with me some really big numbers when you were going to a room full of people and spending 3 days with them, and I think you were pitching like a $60,000 program.
Yeah.
So these are people who have no idea who Alfonso Cuadro is on day one.
Hmm.
And by day three, there's $60,000, and a lot of people are buying this program.
Hmm.
So, what are some of the mistakes that you made and the lessons that you learned? And now you're a master at it. What can you share what can you share with us about selling from the stage?
First of all, you have to believe in your product. The product that you're selling has to be exquisite. It's got to be 11 out of 10, right? Like you have to have a product that is going to deliver on what you're selling. That's number one, because it's easy to sell a room. It's easier to sell a group of people one time, but if they're not fulfilled, if you don't have the after fulfillment of how to service your students, your clientele, then you're gonna do well one time, right? Versus having a longevity like I've had longevity in this industry where I'm attracting people. People come to me, I'll get on a Zoom call. They're like, Alfonso, we don't even know what you're selling, but we're in, right? That's what you want. You want to be a magnet to all of these people, and then you get to pick and choose the people you want to work with, right? So number one, the product is number one. So if you are selling a product, a coaching program, or an investment, or whatever it is that you're selling from stage, you have to believe in the product and you have to believe that it's going to help people. So, for example, if you're selling a product for somebody else, but you're just doing it for the money, or you're just doing it because you're gonna you need to convert, or whatever, for whatever, any of those reasons, you're probably not going to do well, or you may do well at first and you're not going to have longevity in the game. So number one, have an amazing product. Number two, you got to believe in the product. Number three, now that belief has to transfer to the audience. The audience needs to have certainty in the product, the company, the people that are running the company, and then lastly, they have to be certain in you. If any of those fail, if they don't have certainty in what they're going to buy, or what they're going to invest in, you may not have a deal, right? And so for me, it's very product driven, and the belief in what you're actually selling in helping people.
So having a really, really great product and
Yeah.
really believing that it delivers on it is the foundation.
That's the foundation.
And
Without that,
then
you
and
can
then
sell.
transferring that belief.
Yeah, yeah. If,
Okay.
if if you don't have that, if that's a basic, right? Like if you don't have that, you will sell from stage. But number one, there's something inside you that's going to say that feeling where you're like, you're doing something wrong, or you're hurting someone, or whatever, like selling someone a bad vehicle. The vehicle is going to, fall apart at some point, and you're taking good money from someone. I don't care who you are. At some point, you feel it deep inside. You can't you can't fake that. This is why it feels like a greasy car salesman when someone comes and tries to sell you a product that people are standoffish, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that, right? I just thought you can just sell people. I'm good at sales. I've been in sales
Yeah.
my entire life, and I didn't have the right product at the very beginning.
Yeah. So what are you selling now? Wealth Genius?
Man, everything I do is it has to do with sales. My whole life is always either selling myself, investments, even dealing with sellers, right? I have to convince them that I'm their buyer. right? And I have to convince someone. I have to sell myself to get the deal that I want, even though other people have offered so much more. And
Okay.
so, what I've done over the past 23 plus years, I've been a real estate investor, and I've developed systems that are easily transferred to other people. Meaning, if real estate is the path that you want to go on, and you want to compress time, right? Because I think if someone is driven enough, they're going to be successful in real estate. But if someone wants to compress time and surround themselves around a group of like-minded people that are doing exactly what they're trying to do, then Wealth Genius is your community, right? And so I've created a real estate platform, and I travel all over North America sharing that platform with thousands of people.
So I've seen you in every major city in Canada. Are you in the US too doing
Yeah,
this?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. And I see a picture of you in front of a large group of people.
yeah.
And I'm always impressed and I'm always wondering, how do you get the people there? I
Um,
just did an event in Ottawa. I did an event in Ottawa. I got 80 people there. Nearly killed me. I was like promoting that thing for 2 months. I was hustling. And I see one day you're in Vancouver, next day you're in Toronto, next day you're in Montreal, and each one has 20, 30, 50, 100 people.
Yeah,
So
well,
what's
we just came back from an event in Toronto. It was like 350 people.
so how do you get the people there?
Well, first of all, when everyone went online, like everyone went very virtual. I went the other way. I went in person. And I thought, well, you know what? I don't know if I could compete virtually because there was just so much. The offerings virtually were just so much. And I had this feeling inside me that said, people need in person, you know? And when they started to open the doors, different provinces and states all across North America, I was there at every opening of every province. I was the first one there. And so the key is building communities, right? So going to like say we go to Vancouver, right? So now we have like 20 members, right? But if you forget to service those members, if you don't fulfill those members, when you come back, those 20 people are not going to be there, and you got to start over. You got to start over. You got to start over. And so the key for me is like, okay, any city that I go to. So I just came back from Irvine, California. We have This is the first time I've gone to Irvine, California. We had like, you know, 20 people in the room, but all those 20 people now are members of Wealth Genius, right? They're part of our community. And our job between now and the next time we go is to make sure that these people are fulfilled. It's not just about selling a product, it's about providing value for someone. And when they feel fulfilled, they're going to get excited, and they're going to pull other people. They're going to say, "Oh, you got to come see this guy." So the next time I come around, I'm expecting to have maybe 50 people in the room, right? And so those 50 people, out of those 50 people, depending on who wants to be a part of Wealth Genius, then we have to fulfill those people, right? So we have a fulfillment team of coaches and like a call center, like emails, tech support, back end people. Like we have a full team to be able to provide the service, so we can be of value to people, right? And so, how do I fill these rooms? I'm providing massive value. I'm over delivering on my promise, and making sure that I make myself available as much as possible to these people. So I continue to go back. It's not like I go to Vancouver and never people don't see me ever again. I'll go back and continue to service that community, and watch that community grow, and then they'll pull more. It's going to be organic.
Okay, cool. So you've got a seven-figure or multi-seven-figure coaching company with hundreds of clients across North America, and you have a completely separate business that's buying and renovating and managing real estate that has its own team. How do you make yourself available? What are some of the ways that you've sort of scaled your availability without completely losing your personal life? Are you doing voice memos? Are you doing group calls? Are you doing Facebook groups? What are some of the logistics of how you scale your availability without losing your sanity?
I read this book. I think you might have read it too, and it's come up a few times in multiple books. The 80-20 rule,
Hmm.
right? So 80% of what you do doesn't really impact your business. Actually, only 20% of the activities you do on a daily basis actually create more than 80% of your revenue or value or what have you, right? So what I have gotten really good at is focusing on that 20%. So then I create all this time for myself, right? So for example, I don't have email on my phone. I am very specific on when I check my text messages, and I don't go down a black hole. I have other people operating so things like social media. I mean, there are times when I go there on my own, but time is the most valuable thing that we have. It's the commodity that it's is finite, right? Like if you waste the time, it's gone forever. So I've gotten really good at managing my time and making sure that I'm spending my time doing the things that excite me and that are going to be the most valuable for all of our companies. So I have the Quadra group of companies, and we built really amazing companies that can operate without me. And so my time is invested where I'm needed the most, right at the front of the stage, delivering, either raising capital or negotiating. So I have an acquisitions department. Nothing can happen without people, right? And the solopreneur thing is BS, right? In my opinion, right? In my opinion, I know people can automate a lot of the things, and there's Chat GBT now, but just like everyone went online, I went in person. Just how everyone's going AI, I'm going people. And people. You find really good people, you cultivate them, you create leadership, and what you're gonna create is amazing followers, and that builds a company. That means that no longer your time is going to be needed in every single aspect of your business. And so my calendar, all my time is accounted for, all of it, if when we have daylight saving time and we go back an hour, I'm thinking, who am I going to invoice for this hour? Like
So I'm hearing a theme that you're doing the opposite of what the mass does. The mass goes to AI, you go to people. The mass goes to online, you go to in person. Is that a principle you follow generally?
I didn't even know I was doing it. I was just, I look at, where am I going to have the least amount of competition, right?
Yeah.
And when like online, there's just so much. And we do have offerings online. I'm not saying that you should not look at online, because obviously, I mean, it makes things a lot easier, more efficient. You can do that from home. You can do them from anywhere. I mean, I saw you were in Guatemala. I saw you, doing all these amazing things. So I'm not against online, but for me, I said, where can I be more competitive when you have all of these real estate networks and platforms and educational platforms? How do I stand out, and how do I make sure that people have an opportunity to get to know who I am and the offering that I have? Well, I had to go to a space where I was the only one, and it was just like everything aligned during COVID-19, where everyone kind of went online, including myself, like during the pandemic. But the second they opened the doors, I was there, right? And it was just, and I wasn't expecting to be the only one, to be honest with you, right? I wasn't expecting. I thought everyone was thinking the same thing. So I was like, I got to be first. You know,
Yeah.
they opened up Alberta. The second they opened it up, boom! I was the next week I was doing an event. The place was full because they were so hungry for it. Then I went
Mm.
to Edmonton. Then they opened up BC. Boom! I'm in Vancouver. The place was full because there was nobody else doing it. You know, and so it's almost like there was this urgency. It was like I have to make sure I can capture market share before anybody starts. I'm thinking like they're coming. I mean, and I was like, all 2022, I was like, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. They didn't come yet. Now I'm too far ahead.
Amazing. What have you learned from working with venues that what do you look for in a venue now? And what do you negotiate and ask for with the venue? Because you've probably learned the hard way in a bunch of different ways. And what do you look for? Because there's the Chateau Laurier, the best of the best, the Fairmont properties, and then there's the scary places, right? And you're looking for some. I don't know exactly what you're looking for in your venues, but what
Yeah.
have you learned?
So I have an events person. So number one, if you're planning to do a cross country, right? Which Canada is very easy, by the way. The US, I mean, how many cities have over 1 million people, right? But across Canada, you can, with two hands, we can count the amount of cities that would be viable for something like for a tour across Canada. And if you're trying to book the venues, you know what we discovered after COVID-19 is no one's working. So you send emails, no one gets back to you, and you need a full-time person. You need a full-time person that has a list, a checklist of all the standards. So, we have a very specific standard. Not only that, we fly out a team. Like there's a whole process, and you need a what dedicated person that is just doing that, just booking things, just going to other venues. We've been really good with working with very specific hotels that have a very specific brand, and then we can kind of like go across the country, knowing what to expect. You get the surprise. Every time there's a surprise, we put it on a list, and or X out that venue that we're never going to go back there again. We learned as well that you need to be in venues that are flexible, where you can add more people than are expected. Things like coffee, water, people just like kind of like no-brainers, but you think they're no-brainers, but some hotels don't provide that. So you want to make sure that. So what we've done is we've created a checklist, and anytime we think about something, we add it to the checklist. If you're going to be renting equipment from the venue, it's going to be very costly. So we're like, okay, what can we travel with? What are the things that we can travel with that we can buy on our own? And what are the things that we absolutely need from the hotel? So we minimize the cost, and we learned this kind of like, hey, because like I had the luxury of working with other people that would hire me to deliver their programs, and they would take care of everything, right? So I had no clue. I had no clue. For example, we have a conference, and the venue is like $30,000 a day. I'm like, $30,000 a day. This is a 3-day event, you know, and we had no clue of what things cost, because we never had done in every city. As I was growing the business, every city, the venues the people that were registering were more, and the venues were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and so they required more, right? And we learned it all. Like we learned it on the job. We're like, oh, we'll never do that again. That's costly. How can we buy that? How can we have that in our storage? That kind of thing.
Yeah, very cool.
You got good
So,
questions, Majid. You got good questions.
so
You
where
know,
are you going next? Where do you see this all going for you?
so we're growing. We grew into the U.S. and basically we're taking what we've learned, and I am cultivating other speakers, right? So remember what I talked about leadership. You're not a true leader until you create other leaders, right? And so, if we're going to continue to grow, we need to invite other brilliant minds, and I need to train them to be amazing trainers and speakers. And ultimately, then I can be in two places at once, or three or four or five places at once. When I was in Irvine, at the same time, I had an event in Barrie, Ontario, right? And so this is now, now I've duplicated myself, right?
Very
And
good.
now it's all about, how many people can I attract, right? That want to be part of the mission, the vision, and everything that we stand for, and they have the similar belief that I can train to go to the next level.
That's great. I got a question for you about personal brand. You're almost always in a suit, and not just any suit, usually like a very colorful and unique suit, right? I know you come from the fashion business. Well, how do you think about clothes for yourself?
Yeah.
And how do you want to see the people dressed who are representing you, for example?
People need to be themselves, right? Because if you're wearing a suit and it's clearly not you, it's going to show, you know? For me, it's a lot deeper than that. When I was a teenager, I had no confidence. I had no self worth. I didn't believe in myself. Zero confidence, right? And I'm living on the streets, homeless, and obviously, I shared with you that when my daughter was born, I had no choice. I had to just kind of like go back into society and go back to school, get a job, like get my life together. But as you make a transition from one life to another, and as you're changing, everyone's forever evolving, but I was evolving. When I was 15, I had gotten in trouble, nothing major, but I had gotten in trouble, and there was a court case that I had to deal with. And it's kind of like residue of my past life. And I feel that if I would have been charged, or I would have had that on my record, if I had any type of criminal charge on my record, it would have definitely impacted my entire career and my future, because my first business required me to go to the US. That was my clothing business. Was I was going to New York and bringing clothes to Ottawa. And so that wouldn't even have happened if I had this charge. Now, there was always this man, his name is Peter. He was always around. He was kind of like my big brother. He wasn't part of any organization, but he was always, like a family friend that was always checking in on me. And I was living on my own at the time, 17 years old. I'm a father at this time. I'm trying to get my life together. And my mom had said that, Alfonso has this court case, and like, I'm worried about it, kind of thing. And so he comes and visits me, and he says, "Do you have a suit?" And I said, "I don't have a suit. I've never worn a suit." Right? I was 17 years old. I'd never had worn a suit in my life. Suits never entered my brain as like a piece of clothing that I would ever wear in my life. And he's like, "Well, if you don't wear a suit, it's almost like you don't respect the court. And if you want to have a favorable outcome, the very least you can do is wear a suit in the courtroom." And I said, "I don't have a suit." So he's like, "Let's go get you a suit." And so we went to I can't remember if it was Value Village or some sort of secondhand store. And there's this rack with all these suits, and I don't even know my size, right? So I grab a few, and then I put the suit on. And then I went out and I looked at myself in the mirror. Majid, for the first time in my life, I saw potential in
Mm,
myself.
nice.
And so that the suit to me, it's like a cape. I don't know. Ever since that day, it's like there's a confidence that was built. within me that I'm like, I can do so much more with my life. I'm not even tapping into my full potential. And so, one is the respect for the audience that I want to have. Number two, changing something so small as the way you dress has a direct impact on how and who you attract that day. And winners are attracted to the winners locker room, right? And that's kind of like what the suits, it's like there's a meaning for me when I put a blazer on. I'm always in a blazer, I'm always in a or a suit, or it just, that's what it to me, that's what I'm magnifying that. I'm just, that's part of my brand. People know this. And the flashier the better, because that's my personality.
Yeah, flashy. I
But it's
love that.
not for it's not for everyone, right? It's like for some people, they wore suits all their life, and to be on stage and not wear a suit, that's impactful to them because that was the first time they were free, kind of thing. Everyone needs to be themselves.
Yeah, very good. All right, Alfonso, we've covered a lot. We've covered selling from the stage, which is all about believing in your product. We talked about filling the room, which is all about building the community.
Yeah.
We talked about why you're doing in person, and it's partly because you just felt like that's what the people needed and everyone else is doing virtual. I was talking to a friend recently. She said she was buying Fubu and Bubble Baby, I think from your store on Rito Street. What was the name of that store?
Rugged culture. Yeah.
Mm,
So I started my business in 1996.
yeah. And you're doing now your coaching business, Wealth Genius, and you're doing the real estate business. I remember at one point you were selling e-bikes and you were doing
Yeah. So what I've done,
commercial cleaning.
yeah. So what I've done is I've streamlined the things that I'm good at, and that's all I do, right? I've doubled down on the things that I'm good at, even if even I had companies that I wouldn't even have to, the other people were running, but it would take up bandwidth in my mind. So I had to sell, cut, I had to restructure everything that I'm doing. And I'm just doing the things that are symbiotic to one another, right? And so everything I'm doing, it's revolved around real estate. That is my focus. That's all I do. And that's all I want to be known for.
Let me ask you, you were $1 million in debt
Yeah.
and you did not file for bankruptcy.
No.
And I have a feeling you probably had other moments that felt like rock bottom for you. If you'd like to share what those other moments were, I'd love to
Sure.
know. And if you've seen a pattern of how you got yourself out of it, I'd love to know how you get yourself through those times.
Well, the next time was when I got divorced. So I went through a divorce roughly about 11 years ago. It was rough emotionally because I was so successful in so many other parts of my life. But then this one thing, which is relationships, I wasn't successful. And so, I hit rock bottom, and it was a little bit ugly where I had to give up everything, anything liquid. I fought for my proper my income properties, but obviously, you know, all of my other liquid assets and my home and everything, I had to, I had to come to some sort of terms, and to the point where my lawyer was like, I'm advising you against this. And what I wanted is just for everything to end. So I probably, didn't do the best deal or whatnot. And it was a dark moment, but it was a moment where I had to kind of restart, refresh, and start from scratch all over again. And then the next time, I would say the most memorable time is COVID, right? So before COVID, my calendar was booked solid. I'm making over $1 million a year in speaking, and I'm living the life of my dreams, right? I'm traveling all over, and other people are paying the bill, and it is just all disappears, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy, what am I gonna do now, right? And so very much like an elastic band, if you take an elastic band, and I'm a big believer in this, either you're expanding or contracting. And sometimes you need to contract to expand. But when you expand, and like for example, you take an elastic band and you stretch it to its capacity. When you let it go, it's now bigger than it was before. And so acknowledging that now I have more of a more knowledge. And every time I restart, it's like I'm not restarting. It feels like it's from scratch, but my elastic band is like this, right? And so, of course, you're going to contract a little bit, but don't live there. Expand again, right? And Wealth Genius was born from that, right? Like Wealth Genius did not exist before the pandemic. It was just it wasn't something that existed. And so what I did was I went right to work. I put in the work and I put in the time. Now I'm smarter, better, more efficient than I was before. And so every time you grow, every setback is a time of contraction, and your job is to learn from it and then expand once more. And it's now the elastic band is like this. And even if you let it go, now it's like this, right? And it's like, right? And
Mhm.
slowly you're growing and you become wiser. I didn't know how wise I would be in my 40s. When we met back when I was 30 years old, I thought, okay, I know all there is to know.
So
Little
you,
did we know how much we didn't know.
yeah. So you've seen the cycles, and if I could speculate, what those low points have in common is in both of those. I'm referring to COVID and the divorce,
Mhm.
which I've experienced both. Mine happened at the same time, COVID and
Yeah.
divorce.
Wow,
Um,
double whammy.
yeah, double whammy. In both cases, you have a vision of the future that vanishes.
Yeah,
You expected you're going to live with that lady for the rest of your life, and boom, it's gone. You expected you're going to be making $1 million a year traveling
yeah, yeah.
perhaps for the rest of your life, and boom, it's gone. So there's an attachment to the future
Mm.
that you grieve and mourn and rebuild. And now that you look back, you can see it's a cycle
Yeah, yeah,
that if you zoom out far enough, you do see ultimately a trajectory, at least of building wisdom and experience.
yeah. And the wiser you are, the better you are equipped to dealing with the downturns, right? And
Yeah.
I think Jim Rohn, I love Jim Rohn, and I know that you know Jim Rohn, but maybe your audience doesn't know Jim Rohn. Go check him out. But he said, "Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills.
Hmm.
You have more skills, you can deal with any problem." And the benefit that number one, when I went through my divorce and I started over, the benefit that I had was I was very skillful in building businesses. So I went build businesses, right? I was, this is what I was doing. And when it comes to the pandemic, well, not only do I have the skill set in building businesses, but now I have this new added skill of selling from stage, impacting people, building community, and it wasn't hard for me to put everything together. I always tell people, Wealth Genius has been the one thing in my life that has been effortless. It's almost like it's like everything in my life that I've learned has come together for me to build this community that was so effortless that it just like it kind of like it just organic. It's organic. We're attracting people versus everything else. I pushed Majid. I pushed so much for all the other things that I've done in my life. I pushed so much on so many things that I became so skillful that this just became like boom, you know?
Well, from the outside looking in, it looks like you planted seeds long ago and watered them over and over and over, and then boom, it shot up. But it's something that you've really cultivated for decades.
Well, that's what I tell people all the time. If you want to be a speaker and this is what you want to do, if you want to be a speaker, be prepared to be underpaid for a very long time. And if you can prepare yourself for that and you're doing it because you love or you want to change lives, you want your message out for whatever reason, then those are all the right reasons to do this business because you're going to be underpaid for a very long time until one day, and that day will come, that you'll be overpaid.
Mm, good. Love it. I think we'll leave it on that note. Alfonso Cuadra, how do people connect with you, learn more about Wealth Genius, invest in your real estate projects? How do people get a hold of you?
I'm very Googleable. I'm on all your favorite social media platforms. If I'm not there, shame on me. And
Yes.
just go to my YouTube channel, type in Alfonso Cuadra, subscribe. I have 1,100 videos of free content on my YouTube channel. And if anything that I say on there resonates with you, reach out.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.